I ran across an article, and it is under Dream and Hustle. And you're going to see clips of individuals. Let me begin by saying this. You're going to see two men pictured here, one by the name of Dr. Claude Anderson, and the other is Derek Coleman. And that's primarily what the article is talking about, and it's talking about nationalism, black nationalism, and national black nationalist hustlers. And a lot of times you have these individuals that'll come out on social media and they'll talk about black empowerment, black economics, or how to bring money back to like poor communities or black communities, empowerment of black people. And Dr. Claude Anderson was a radio host. He has written books, he has done lectures, he's visited different cities, and he talks a lot about his philosophy in powernomics, or economics for the black betterment of communities, to build money, bring back money in the community. So he's got a lot of videos on YouTube and different websites, and he promotes books and his business, and he's had some business ventures that haven't done well, according to the article that I'm about to read. And Derek Coleman was a ball player for the Nets. You're also going to see a clip of the next one is Dr. Boyce Watkins, who's also promoted books on economics. He talks about how he has economic strategy to help, or ideas that will help build the black communities. He also gives lectures. By the way, I want to mention Gavin Long used to attend. If you don't know who Gavin Long is, he was one of the shooters in Baton Rouge, um, where he shot the police, based on uh, the anger and the rage that he also, I believe, he had like P what is it, post traumatic stress syndrome, PTSD. So you get these guys on social media, um, and they're called black nationalists, or coined as black nationalists, or some people will say race pimps or race hustlers, or black nationalist hustlers, or they have like schemes on what they use is to build a following, to get people to hear messages about black empowerment. And so you have Dr. Claude Anderson and Derek Coleman, who he invested in some business in Detroit. And then there was Boyce. We have Boyce Watkins, and then we have some older people from long ago who talked a lot about black economics and building black businesses and keeping black dollars in the community. So you're going to see clips of Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, also Farrakhan. We have to put him in there because he talks a lot about black unity and empowerment and what have you. So it's usually um, males, and I'm not saying that to be mean, but usually they tend to go on the whole ideology of powernomics, or black unity, black economics, or building black communities. In other words, keeping black dollars. And so I'll just go into the article, but there was a lot of information here that I think that was really important to share with people, because I always question individuals and what their intent is, because a lot of times you need to ask yourself these questions. Are these people really doing something for the black community? Are they just trying to sell books, or are they just trying to fill their pockets? So you always have to ask the questions about the credibility of the individuals and what their true intents are. So in the article, with that being said, it goes as follows. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to pull apart some real good information. I read the whole article, but if you would like to read it at the end of this whole video, I will expound on where to find the article. Um, So it goes on to say, when it comes to researching and implementing a successful strategy, you should look at both success models and failure models to have a full understanding of the environment and situation. In this article, we are going to talk about the failure models of Dr. Claude Anderson, Derek Coleman, when it comes to trying to create economic activity in the city of Detroit. The goal of this article is to establish teachable moments and takeaways so that we can approach economic development in our community by learning from other people's mistakes. So with that being said, something went down with Dr. Claude Anderson and Derek Coleman making investments or priding themselves on black empowerment and black powernomics and economics, and keeping black dollars in the black community. So it continues on. It says, please note that we have a lot of wannabes. I thought this was important, running around with Dr. Claude Anderson's name in their mouth and have nothing but emotions running through their body. While I respect Dr. Claude Anderson, the reality is he is no father of black economics or modern economics or anything. Dr. Claude Anderson is just another light-skinned, curly-haired brother who got into the white privilege circles during the 1970s and became radio talk show host and book writer, and now peddling black nationalism to sell books and advance his business. I respect Dr. Claude Anderson for being an elder, but do not think for 1 second I worship him like the rest of these wannabe brothers running around, because I know what is real in this arena. So in other words, this person I would assume he has some know-how in economics and how it operates, and how you can build lucrative businesses and things that will bring back and build communities. So it goes on, continuing, you will see when you dig a little deeper that Claude Anderson's biggest flaw is exactly what it's described. The only African Americans we have that proven and established true modern urban economics developments was Maynard Jackson, former mayor of Atlanta; Andrew Young, former mayor of Atlanta; Bill Campbell, former mayor of Atlanta; Shirley Franklin, former mayor of Atlanta; and Kazim Reed, current mayor of Atlanta. No one in the country has done anything close to the people I mentioned in terms of building true economic development and culture for economic opportunities for black people. And let's make sure that we have that understanding clear. Anybody who tells you that they know about black economics and cannot articulate who I just named is full of crap. And you should be smart enough to know this. If we want to go further, we can start naming Mo Ibrahim in Africa, who worked with African dictatorship to start bringing in more democratic ruling, and the Chinese to stabilize African nations, and now many countries in Africa are established double-digit economic growth. We can talk about all the black Africans involved in establishing digital money frameworks and remittances, and setting up dams for electricity, and so on. All these cats that you're hearing about, black economic leadership that expands worldwide and adopt global patterns and practices with success models. What is sad is that these male wannabes, this article's a trip, that talk about economic empowerment and got Dr. Claude Anderson's name in their mouth cannot even mention any of these people in the world and profile what they are doing, because they want to front an image more than create solutions and betterment. So with that being said, I'm going to stop right there. So this was important, what he said, that people want to front an image, and they want people to look at them, and they want people to buy their books. They want people to pay for their appearances so they can do these fancy lectures about black upliftment, black empowerment, and what have you. So I'm going to go on to read. Now let's talk about Detroit, because during the early 2000s there were 2 attempts by 2 individuals. So they go on to talk about Dr. Claude Anderson as a fish farmer pundit, and another, Derek Coleman, the former professional athlete. Okay, what their outcomes were. So Claude Anderson proposed to create feasibility study and was paid over 2000 to document by the city of Detroit on how to establish black business districts. 100K document can be found here at blah blah blah. It says www.hoodresearch.org, Powernomics. Okay, so for your review. In the document, Claude Anderson made the case that immigrants are taking jobs from black people in African town, quote unquote, should be exclusively to blacks. No other race allowed to participate in the name drop Powernomics overthought throughout this 100K taxpayer funded feasibility study. A resolution was drafted by the Detroit Council, and here's where it gets ugly, okay? It says to create the Detroit Capital Development Corporation, or DCDC, based on Dr. Claude Anderson's exclusion and xenophobic recommendations, created a firestorm. So xenophobic, in other words, it created a firestorm, so there was a lot of anger, okay? And the anger was in mainstream media, and notability of Jewish-owned media outlets seemed to show the most outrage. Okay. However, the city council passed the resolution, and the mayor of Detroit vetoed the resolution after getting heat from other communities who called the resolution racist and divisive and unconstitutional. The mayor vetoes was overridden by the city council but was not legally binding, and after the firestorm, the buck was passed to another regional economic development group, basically killing the legislative effort. Okay, so it didn't work out, in other words, in his favor. So there was that huge controversy right there. And so I'm going to skip over. Okay, so if this quote is true, okay, there was a quote. This controversy did not arise when the city gave Mike Ilitch, $40 million to build a baseball park where only black person in the mix is a peanut vendor, said Dorian Harvey, who plans to build an African-centered retail entertainment complex where they were trying to build an enterprise where blacks can be the owners and executive directors. We never thought about it being discriminatory, but expect that any time blacks talk about building wealth and becoming self-sufficient, as Marcus Garvey did when the Black Star Ocean Line, Marcus Garvey, he had a Black Star Ocean Line, we can expect to be attacked. So in other words, this quote was talking about black empowerment, and whenever you talk about black creating black empowerment and unity, it's always attacked, there's some truth in that. So I agree with that. If this quote is true, then, said Dorian Harvey, it appears that the whole African town concept was nothing more than a developer hustle ploy to get the city to pay for their development under the guise of black nationalism, plain and simple. The $40 million to build a baseball park is one thing, but I don't think we can compare the feasibility study for the baseball park to the feasibility study of Dr. Claude Anderson creating that attacked other ethnicities and name dropped Powernomics left and right. One city council member basically said that they paid Dr. Claude Anderson $100K to promote his Powernomic book, and this project failed because Dr. Claude Anderson chose to be self-promoting xenophobic bigot, and he screwed this all up for Dorian Harvey, plain and simple. So there was also the whole thing with Derek Coleman in 2007, a former NBA star who made $87 million, according to the news reports, starting to using his money to invest in rebuilding and revitalizing Detroit, where he grew up. So Derek Coleman financed a loan to create a strip mall in Detroit, on the west side of Detroit, where he established, Sneaker Bar, to sell gym shoes and host tenants for a pizza shop, barbershop, bill payment center. And it says, where is the tax return center and the hair beauty supplies, our beauty store, while we are at it, in other words, because I don't talk like that, but while we're at it, why are all the stereotypical hood businesses for an $87 million man to do for the hood? So in other words, I'm just going to pick apart what that says. So he had an idea to put a strip mall in there, as if he was kind of putting back into the community in the west side of Detroit. But every story he had was sort of stereotypical. Like when you got those poor neighborhoods, you have the beauty supply shop, you have like you have like a little Chinese food restaurant, and then you have like certain little areas, those little mom pop stores, or you have those areas where like those stores that don't really pay very much, minimum wage at best. And so, and it's kind of hoodie. So it's really not putting money in the black community. It's just sort of stereotypical. So, okay, so it goes on to say that Coleman financed the operation through loans, personal investments that also appeared leveraged with money from others to acquire these properties. Use other people's money is the common thought that appears to be Derek Coleman's approach to financing his ventures and real estate. But the problem is when you do things on margin, you're hoping things go up so you can make a profit. But what happened in 2008, so we all know in 2008 there was a big problem with money, foreclosures, a lot of people had lost jobs. So it says the market collapsed and the real estate market went to crap. Derek Coleman's debt financing were now worthless with no sign of a positive return. Detroit started to slip further and further as GM and other automakers were looking for bailouts, and jobs were bleeding in Detroit, and things were getting from bad to worse. But I know what you smart people are thinking. Hey, didn't Derek Coleman set up a corporation so that he won't be liable for bad investments? It does not appear so, as Derek Coleman had to file a Chapter 7 total dissolution bankruptcy of his personal assets to deal with his creditors and debtors. In both cases, we had a pro-black nationalist and we had a professional athlete who both wanted to do well for the hood and create economic development. In both cases, you saw the outcome, which was not successful. Dr. Claude Anderson could not keep his xenophobic bigotry to himself and did not fully understand how to approach getting taxpayer money to fund a project. Okay? And it would have been very likely African Town, quote unquote, would have got 40 million and started development then, but the mistake was made that was to bring in a black nationalist loudmouth who spewed nationalist hatred in a taxpayer-funded feasibility study peddling his powernomic book in the document creating the firestorm of controversy. Derek Coleman went on and went to the opposite end. Instead of using taxpayer money, he appeared to leverage his own assets and use debt financing to obtain real estate property and start a business. The market collapsed in 2008 and he owned debt and did not have assets and had to file for a total dissolution in bankruptcy. Derek Coleman's mistake was not buying property outright and creating a corporate shield to protect his personal assets from liabilities. I'm wondering who was Derek Coleman's financial advisors through this whole episode. So I'm going to stop right there. So you're seeing this unfolding here in this article, and it goes on and on and on and on. So I've read a lot of information. So there are a lot of things going on in the world here in America, in the corporate world, in poor communities, in the black world of black communities, and a lot is being pushed on videos for powernomics, economics, betterment of black communities, saving black communities. You'll also see there's something on the websites talking about black banking, and so you should really look into all of these things. And I believe that's an effort to be able to establish loans, because black people have a histories where there's been economic oppression of black people. So what has happened is you'll have black people who are trying to establish a foothold in American society. So what they do is they feel that if they have like black banking, that there's a possibility that you can become homeowners, business owners, you can get loans to create businesses and build in communities or poor communities that will be generally for the betterment of black people. as a whole. So you'll have all these people coming out pushing for all of this, but you have to ask questions about what the true intent of these individuals are. Is it going to better the community? Is there some flaws, some errors in all of this? And I do this. That's the way I am. I always have to question who these individuals are, because just because they're black and they say things that make you feel good, because if you are a black person, you see what's going on in the world and you're in tune, and in tune even a little bit. If you see what's going on, there's a level of frustration. So you want to know if there are people out there for your best interests. So some people will take a religious approach, some people will take an economic approach, an educated approach. And I'm not saying that these people are dumb or anything. They're pretty educated, but education, sometimes if a person is educated, they can use it to be divisive. They may know something you don't know, and they may use it against you. So you have to always question the intents of these individuals when they come out and they're selling these books. Is this money really for them? Because, see, they're getting paid to do these lectures, these talks, to travel. You almost see always Boyce Watkins. He's like on an airport, he's traveling, and he says it's part of his business and whatnot. And I imagine that they probably have money coming in. They're doing things. They're maybe entrepreneurial, like that. I believe he's a teacher. He's done lectures at universities. I believe he's a professor. But and they probably already have a safety net. They already have retirement. They probably already are secure in their shoes. But hey, you don't want to turn down other money either, right? So if you have a bunch of black people who are downtrodden, and they desire hope, and they want answers, and you've got all this stuff going on, and if you're intelligent, you can sell books, you can do lectures, you can make statements on how certain governments are doing black people wrong. You need to follow with this movement, you need to donate to my cause. So I'm just giving you a clue here. So there's a lot of anger with black people, in terms of frustrations of not being able to get an economic foothold in the world of America. Now, there are other black people who have done well for themselves. You have black celebrities, entertainers, and then people who are maybe not in the entertainment world, who are also doing well for themselves. You just don't hear that much about them. And the way the world is, everything is mainstream. And so in the article that I had mentioned, it talked about mainstream. And so mainstream is more about what this person had coined in the article. When I go down, I'm just going to straight up pan down to what this person was saying. Okay, entitled Shay. Okay, what you speak about, he's responding to the article. What you speak about comes from a low self-esteem and having an inferiority complex. Also, I can tell anyone what's important isn't who supports your business, but more that you're the owner of it. I really don't care who my customer base is in terms of race and gender. I do not want anyone supporting me just because my business is black owned. Support me because I offer the products and services you need. I offer multiple payment options. I offer multiple avenues in which you can receive my products and services: downloadable mail, in person, webinar, etc. My business is located in a way that is convenient for you, and my prices are in line with what you can afford. The above is how most people shop for products and services. So isn't that the way the world is working? Everything is mainstream. So it doesn't matter what your religions and whatnot, and what color you are, nationality, what foods you eat, whether you're black or you're white or whatever. So it goes on to say, in addition, create mainstream businesses, not black specific businesses. Walmart is mainstream. Now, we all know some of the things about Walmart, but they make big money. Okay, they don't care who comes in the stores and buys as long as you can pay for whatever you put in your cart. You can shop there. There is a lot of money in mainstream business. When I say mainstream, I'm not talking about white folks. Businesses that have non specific affiliation based on race, religion, sexual orientation, and mainstream businessing. In other words, you just want customers. You're not a specific on what customers, what religion. You're trying to bring business into your community by going mainstream. And that's what sells, that's what works, that's what builds communities. Okay, those businesses have a much better chance of succeeding and they get more mileage. Reason being, you're catering to a mass market, the mainstream. That's where the money is. And I thought that was really important, that person mentioning that, because that is so true. And that is how the world operates today. Mainstream businessing is what brings in money in communities. And people have to get out of that, oh, everything just pro black this. I'm not saying throw away the the pride, but if you want to build black businesses and communities, you might have to use a new approach about doing things instead of just focusing on a narrow centered view of life. And so that's what I believe the article was entailing. That was the fall of, well, at least of Dr. Claude Anderson. It seemed like with Derek Coleman, it was just the ignorance of managing money. He wasn't really good about, the whole market crashing in 2008, where we went in sort of a depression. So he lost money and he had to file bankruptcy. So some people, they claim that they know, they have all this expertise in economics, but they really haven't done their homework, and then they're selling you, or they're peddling you the race card type of approach. But really, in all reality, they're making money off of books. These people are probably already living okay, I would say generally. I'm assuming this. But they're getting money. They're getting money, but if you listen, you buy their books, and you're going to their lecture, you're paying that little money, just think of having, like, going from different cities, and you have 100 people show up to your lecture, and they've paid $50, $100, $70 to listen to you talk about black economics. Where's that money going? Question these issues. So you have, like what I said, the Black Lives Matter. You have a black following because you have black men that are being gunned down, black women that are being gunned down by the police. And we know all these issues, and they come up on the news and what have you. And, we know that America's about capitalism. And so you got to think about that. America's about capitalism. So when you think about the capitalist ideology, you got black people who know that are here in America. They know, okay, America's about capitalism. I'm capitalizing on black problems. So I feel like a lot of people are not really knowledgeable about individuals when they do all this talk about economics, black dollars. Be careful of who, just like you have to be careful about crazy people who post these websites talking about, let's go out here and start a revolution, let's go kill white people, things like that. Be careful about these individuals, because first of all, that just sounds way out overt crazy. But this approach in dealing with money matters in the black community is a whole nother animal altogether, but it's very similar as to somebody saying, okay, we're going to he's building a following. He knows black people are angry about police brutality, and so he's saying, let's come out there with brute force and aggression, and we're going to defend our communities and stuff. And I understand if something is in your face and you're in imminent danger and you have to do what you got to do, then that is how you present yourself to try to work out avenues of, let's try to figure out how to defend ourselves, but not get ourselves killed or kill others. Let's do this in another fashion. there are some circumstances where you feel cornered and you have no other avenue out, and you're looking for answers. But this right here has to do with the money matters, with economics, and black wealth and building, and what is going to be things that will help the black community survive or thrive. And they fear that black communities are dwindling. But you know what? If you really think about it, there are other communities that aren't black that they felt like, oh, this was our community. They're also complaining that their communities are not thriving, and that they're coming into a time where, I don't know if you've really paid attention to, like, even here in California, like in Boyle Heights, the rents are increasing. So a lot of communities that were Hispanic communities, what has been happening, the rents have been raised and the rents continue to go up. And so a lot of people are being affected by this. And where you have these developers that come in, these land developers, they build condominiums, and it's for like this hipster community. And these are people that are like well off, they're educated, and they're making money. And I don't know if you heard the thing about with Bernie Sanders, he talks about the 1%. And you got the little people down there who they have the little bit of money and they're just trying to make it, the little small business owners. And then you have this big government, and you got this 1%, this individuals, that a few individuals, group of individuals who harbor all of the income, all the money. You know, you got, you know, if you're big on politics, they talk about lobbyists do that, you know, in government. And then they also talk about how the 1% people tend to hide money in offshore accounts in Cayman Island. And you'll hear Bernie Sanders talk a lot about that kind of stuff. So it's the same thing. And then you'll hear about like how land developers, people come in, they build all these like fancy lofts, like even in the downtown area, and that what it's coined as gentrification. So you'll have even African American communities where they complain about the rents are high, and they continue to rise and skyrocket. In Hispanic communities, they're complaining. You know, these were neighborhoods where all of people, like just working class people, family oriented people, lived in these communities. They grew up, were born and raised in these communities. These communities are so much a part of them and their family and their history. And it's like you have these people that come in one full swoop, they just change the whole make of the neighborhood because they've got the dollars to do it. You know, so it's the same thing. You know, you have people, they come in, they tell you all this good stuff, and you know, black people have really went through a lot of drama, you know, throughout history, even up to now. It just seems like we're just always, you know, there's like this rabbit hole. And, you know, as soon as you feel like you're climbing out of it, you like that, you know, you have people dragging you back down in there. And it sounds good for a moment. And what's that saying? If it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. So, and you see the clip of Dr. Claude Anderson and Derek Coleman again. So you see that, you know, whenever you have one person coming in or two people coming in or a group of guys coming in talking about, well, we're going to build up the community, we're going to do all this stuff, and I don't know, but you're shutting out the mainstream. You know there's going to be backlash. There's going to be some back. We're already getting backlash for regular issues in smaller communities. You don't think we won't get even hardcore issues for big movements like that to try to... That's like really bold of him, I could say that. But then again, you know, some people might look at it as, well, at least he tried, you know. But then again, when you think about it, are you sure about that? Is his real intent to put money in your pockets, or is he just getting paid? Because he's not going to suffer. He's surviving. Because he's going to continue doing lectures. He's going to continue writing books. He's going to continue with his philosophy on Black Powernomics. These individuals, even Dr. Boyce Watkins, also there was a mention of Tariq Nasheed. There was, you know, they're all on YouTube. They're all on these other websites. And they always tend to... You know, some of the issues they bring up, there's some truthisms in it, and you can use truthisms, but mix it with other intents that other people are not able to uncover. It's for unforeseen until they go out and do something like what, for example, Claude Anderson and Derek Coleman did, and you see the end result. Now, I'm not trying to say that, like even with Marcus Garvey, he wanted everything to be black inclusive, and you can read the whole history on him. So it's just, you really got to be careful. I just think people are not, they don't really do the homework on individuals. They don't really read, like, just like Donald Trump, for example. You want to read what are your plans on foreign policy? Explain that. What are your plans on dealing with the Aleppo situation? What are your plans on dealing with, how are you going to, even black people are looking to him, like, like Dr. Boyce Watkins, he mentioned something about in one of his videos that, he didn't like the Obama administration blocked Dr. Claude Anderson on his reparations intent. In other words, Dr. Claude Anderson, he had wanted to get sue the administration for reparations, because there are black people now that you'll hear them saying that Obama didn't do anything for black communities. He didn't do anything for black people. And you have a group of people who they feel that he's done things for other groups. And I'm going to put that out there, LGBTQ and, the rich and maybe other groups, and so there's also this seething hatred with certain individuals, a part of the black community and religious sector as well, certain groups who have this thriving hate towards LGBTQ individuals who totally, really, you're unaffected by them, really. If you ask me, I don't see anywhere in history where LGBTQ people have done anything to black folks when you have black people who are gay and lesbian and fit under that umbrella as well. So I think that's a wasted fight. So you're gonna also see where Dr. Boyce Watkins, he'll also make a lot of mention about the Black Wall Street, which that did happen. There is truthism in all of that. And there is things that, there is a lot of, see, these guys, they know what's going on. They're black themselves. They know the anger that's out there. And they probably feel that anger as well. But people sometimes will use that to be divisive against their own kind. And the money goes in their pocket. At the end of the day, they're writing books. You're buying them. At the end of the day, you're paying to go to those lectures, and that money is going to them. They claim that they're going to build businesses, but think about it. Some people, I imagine there are some people that do have good intents, and they just don't know how to manage money, or they don't know a lot about how to go about building communities. They're just talking a good game. And then there's other individuals, they probably have some expertise in things, but what their intent is that, well, if it fails, I'm going to be fine. I don't care what happens to the rest of them. So you really don't really know these people, like you would think you would. So I like what I said at the end of this video. I always question the credibility of these people. And you see Dr. Boyce Watkins, he has several books, I'm sure they're on Amazon everywhere, talking about black wealth, black building, building monies, and there might be some information in there that you can take away, like what that article said. There's some takeaways, some things that you can learn from the mistakes of people, and then you can also expound on those issues to say, well, if we had did it that similar approach, but in another fashion, and taken it mainstream, and not be so homophobic or xenophobic or woman-phobic or white-phobic, that maybe mainstream is how you build business. in your communities, because if you're funneling the money back to people that you have your interest in, even though you're getting all these customers, that's the way the world works. Some people got to get with it. It's not all one-sided.